guys, how are you? It's Susan Ford here. Thrilled to be on simultaneously with Elevate Hair and with Neil on Facebook. Thanks guys for having me. You've had a great lineup and I'm thrilled, as I said, to be here today. So I have a mannequin that I'm going to cut for you today using my razor and a combination of razor scissors. And I'm going to show you something that I've been really kind of working on lately, and that's moving into rounder shapes. So you can see I have some mannequins with some pre-done styles here. I have a complete kind of a long bowl cut going on here, really kind of perfecting that line. I have a short bowl cut, this done with the scissors. And then I have this cool mannequin. Shout out to Alberto Roseldeus for the great color that he did. This is my rounder shape using the scissors. I have another rounder shape here using a razor. So we're doing something similar to this today, straight edge razor. Shout out to the great Jeffrey Scott for such a fabulous color for me. Thank you. And then I have the typical bowl cut, round bowl cut. So what I'm doing today is a short bob using the razor to get a lot of texture in the hair, and I'm introducing kind of rounder shapes. So we've seen the square bobs and we've seen the triangular bobs for a while. So this is just taking a bob and rounding up the shape, adding a lot of texture. So my tool is a feather plie straight edge razor, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm starting with my pre-section mannequin. So you can see my fringe comes a bit further than we would typically take a fringe area on a guest, but this is all going to be blended in together, so it won't be disconnected or anything. I'm doing the usual 4 quadrants, and I have pre-cut my line first because when I'm cutting a line, I really need to use my mirror to make sure I'm balanced. Without having a mirror today, I'm just saving time by getting my outline in first. But my sectioning would be our 4 quadrants through the back. The only difference today is I have my outline more on the shape that I want to create right through here. So my sections are for this purpose here, that I have a shape that comes up nice into this rounder bob, short one. French bob is what it's typically called as because it sits between the jaw and the chin, so it has that nice curve upwards, but still maintaining the balance. That's really what it's all about. Okay. So using the feather plie because I want to add a lot of texture to this haircut and really enhance the curl that we have. So starting with a fringe area, I'm going to subsection for control. Through here. All right, so I want this fringe to lay above the eyebrows with lots of texture. So I'm using the heel of the razor right now. And then I will go in and add just a little bit of texture with the tip of the razor. So I have my husband is filming and he's answering, or he'll ask the questions. So please feel free to ask any question and I will answer it as I'm cutting. Okay. So the difference between using the razor and the scissors, you can see the edge that I'm getting to the hair right now. I don't have to spend time afterwards texturizing and going and doing that because I'm having that at the same time as the cut. Okay, so I'll just keep feeding from each side to keep my balance correct. And important point when you're using the razor to keep the hair really well saturated all the way through. So I have just shampooed her and pre-cut a little bit before we came on. So I have my water bottle ready, or if you have a cutting lotion, that's great too with the razor. So I'm going in about a 45-degree angle as I'm tipping into the hair here, which is giving me all that texture. So you can see it gives a nice broken line to the hair. Love using the texture or the razor when I'm cutting because I can see the shape really coming out. I don't have to wait till it's blow dried. Just using the heel of that. And then I can see if there's too much weight and I can remove that as I'm cutting. So if you haven't ever picked up a straight edge razor, it's a great tool. You have some time to practice before we get back to our guests. So it's a really cool tool to use. It opens up a whole new way of cutting and thinking about the hair as well. So as I'm moving around, I just really look at the reaction of the hair, see how that's sitting. And you can see where my sections are. I took this quite wide So it comes right to the area that's going to cover up a recession area there. So take a wider fringe area. Return to the other side. Okay, and I'm right-handed, so I'll come over my hand and I use the tip of the razor, or the toe of the razor, and just work on balance here. So I'm rounding out this fringe, as well as the outline being a bit more rounded. I'm rounding out the fringe, so it comes from short into longer there. And each time I take a section, I'll then go back in with the tip of my razor and just remove some of that bulk, some of the weight that's there. Okay, as I'm coming back into the head shape, I'm past the hairline, going back in here. I'll just have my guest tilt her head forward so I can get some elevation. So I add in just a little bit of graduation into the shape so it doesn't sit too heavy. And then before I touch the hair, I get the razor moving, and that will give me more of a fluid look to the hair. Comb that down, see how the hair is reacting. I know it's very thick in here, so just a bit more of that texture. And continue in with the fringe, rounding that around. So I want it to end up, just on the very top of the cheekbones. Okay, so I have a question.
This is on Instagram from Holly Eileen. And the question is, do you usually change the blade throughout the haircut, or do you find you can use one for the entire cut?
Well, to be honest, I work in the salon. I work in Chicago at Asha Salon Spa, and I'm behind the chair 2 days a week. And I think I probably do about 50-50 razor cutting to scissors. And I only have one guest that has such thick hair that I have to change out the blade kind of not halfway through, but towards the end, because I can feel, and that's the thing with the razor. I can talk about the benefits of the razor and how great it is to use, but it's more of a feeling when you're cutting the hair with the razor. And you can feel as you're cutting, if the hair doesn't just instantly melt off when you're touching it with the razor, you know it's time to change the blade. But otherwise, I can get a full haircut done out of the razor. In fact, I prefer when it's a little bit dull, because there is the occupational hazard of working with a straight edge razor. So sometimes if it hits your finger, it's okay, but if it's a brand new blade, that can hurt. A little bloodshed. All right, which hopefully you will not see today. All right, so before I go into the rest of the haircut, I'm going to just work a little bit more on the fringe, take some more of this weight out internally. And this is a great thing with the razor. It's not like a texturizing shears that's telling me how much to take off. I can choose. I'm the one in control of how much weight is being taken off of here. All right, because the fringe is coming from quite far back, we don't want it sitting very heavy. So I think that will be good there. And just going back in and take a little bit more weight out of here. But yeah, the feather plie, and I believe it's called the plie because when you're using a razor, you want to think about being very fluid. We hear plie in ballet, but I think of it as when you're using the razor, you want to be very loose and fluid when you're picking up the hair and you're cutting into it. Instead of being very heavy-handed, be very delicate when you're going there, like a ballerina. Right. Or a dancer going through the hair. Okay, so I feel like my fringe is good. When I'm in the salon and I'm cutting a fringe, I always start with the fringe, especially if they have not had a fringe before and you're putting it the first time. I don't go through the whole haircut and leave the fringe for the end, because what I want is I want the hair to start reacting to what the shape that I put on it. And I have a good half hour going through the rest of the haircut and then seeing how the fringe is drying. So rather than leaving it till the end of the haircut, I always do this the first, whether it's just trimming or it's a brand new one. I want to let that dry as I'm going through the rest of the hair, see the reaction there, and then before I go into the blow drying, I can decide then if I need to take more off. Okay, so as you see, my next part of the haircut here is working on the outline. So my shapes, as you saw from the earlier on, you have the long halo shape, you have a short bowl cut, and then a precision round shape, and then the French bob, and then another short round bowl cut. What I want to do is introduce this to my guest who normally has either a square bob or a triangular bob. try a new shape, bring it up a little bit shorter. What this is going to do at the front is just bring the attention to her jawline, her lip, open up the cheekbones this way, especially when you take the fringe back this far, the focus is then on the cheekbones. So I'll start at the front. My sectioning, if you just joined in, I've taken my sectioning, my first 4 quadrants, and I'm starting with my outline being a little bit shorter, going short into long, but making sure that it's not too long that it starts looking mullety looking. I'm going to still keep this in a bob shape. So I'm taking that right about to the jawline, and then because we're working on top of our fingers, if I hold my fingers at the jawline and start with my cut here, we see that I'm using tension, so it does jump up a little bit. So I know my final outcome I want to be about the lip area. So this will curl around by the lip. And I'm starting at the front. The reason I'm starting at the front is because the line is going backwards here. It's going from short to long. I want to start there. I also want to make sure that I have that length exactly where I want, rather than starting at the back and just hoping to get where I want. So I'm starting at the front. I created the outline, going in through the back. It becomes a little bit more square right through the back here, and then back up to this section here. So this probably takes the longest in the haircut because I do spend time putting the head straight up, making sure everything is balanced, standing back, and also looking at the proportion. Is it too long at the back? Do I need to correct that before I go into the rest? Okay, so that's the reason why I want to start at the front. Okay, now we'll move into the actual haircut. So what I'm creating is I'm creating a rounded line, and I'm going to add a little graduation on top of that rounded line. And because I have my outline already cut in, I'm going to work on one side and then the other. Okay. So do I have any questions? No questions yet? Okay, I will continue.
Lots of love coming in.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for joining in, everyone. All right, so I'm going to pull this hair down. And when I'm cutting with the razor, I give myself a little bit of room. So I see my guide right here. I don't want to put my fingers right up against there because I want room to move. I want to add texture. That's why I'm using the razor. So I have enough room that I can increase the strokes here so I can get a nice amount of texture going into my cut, and I'm going from short to long. And here I'm keeping my fingers pretty close to her neck right here. Actually leaning on, I have my small, my pinky finger on her neck as stability right through here. So I'm bringing this section down with the tension from the wide side of the comb and getting a kind of a medium stroke. So this is the stroke. So it's either a small stroke to create more bluntness or the medium stroke, which will create more texture. Okay, so I have that line in there, and then I will take my next section. And when I have my next section, I'm coming above the parietal ridge. I'll put her head upright, and here's where I want to start elevating because I don't want to create too blunt of a line. I want to add some graduation so it doesn't sit like too heavy across this way, that we have a little bit more shape. So graduation adds a shape. So therefore, as I come into here, I'm elevating a little bit higher and pull all the way through. I see my guide, and then I'm increasing even more. The stroke is getting a little bit wider for the graduation. And the graduation, when you're using a razor, it's such a beautiful shape because you don't get the hard lines that you would with the scissors. So you don't get that heavy buildup of weight. The graduation really from this comes from a little bit of elevation, but it's a bit more from using the stroke a bit wider through here. So the graduation is a lot more seamless than if you use the scissors. Okay, I'll take my next section. I'm not going to elevate too high here. I'm just keeping this a lower elevation, probably no more than 45 degrees. If you're looking for a number, no more than 45 degrees. See my guide and cut to my guide. Okay, more of an elevation here. Okay, see how the hair is reacting. And then my final, right up through the up to the center part, I'll elevate this up. Just a small amount to be cut here. Okay, and then when I'm finished here, I'm going to go in and just do my tipping technique to add a little bit more texture, okay, to increase a bit more of the movement within the shape. Okay, so I have that done. And now I'll immediately go over to the left side, and I'll continue doing that before I go in through the back, because I want to keep my graduation consistent on both, and then I'll blend the graduation from the back to the front. So I'm going back to this side, elevating there. So I'm going to begin by just taking a smaller subsection so I can see through my guide here. And when I bring this section down, this is a second section, so it will be very close to my guest head shape or neck. I have my fingers resting on her neck for stability right here. Okay, I'm still creating a blunt line before I begin my graduation. If I have a long enough perimeter and I start to graduate, I'll end up with a very weak line right through here. So once I create that nice strong line, that's when I'm free to go in and add a little bit of graduation, because I know I won't disrupt the nice shape of the line that I've created. So a little bit of graduation, like about a 45-degree from the head. I'm using the wide side of the comb, and that's giving me the tension that I need, so that it's nice and tight in my fingers when I go to use the razor.
We got a few hellos.
Hello.
Alberto is watching.
Hey Alberto, do you like your color mess? This is the one that you did for me quite a few years ago, and that'll be the test for Alberto's. Now it was, in all honesty, it was a lot more vibrant than that, but like 2 years ago, or two or three years ago, that is not bad at all, considering the amount of times that I've restyled her. So I'm still using that one as an example, because these round shapes are taking a while to take off, but I'm seeing more and more on Elevate and Facebook and Instagram, a lot of the bowl cuts. So eventually we'll get there, but it's just fun playing with the different tools. So that's a very precision cut with the scissors, and here we have a lot more of a loose feeling with the razor. Okay.
And Candice Hammett
Hi,
from
Candice.
DV8 says that you're one of your favourite educators.
Oh, thank you guys. I miss you. It's been fun doing all these lives, but I really can't wait to get in and interact with people. I'm getting used to seeing the back of the camera, but it's very antisocial, I feel. So thanks for joining in. Hope you guys are all doing great. Great salon there in Grapevine, Texas. DV8, great name too.
And speaking of, is Cassandra in Texas?
Ah, Cassandra, that's my girl, Cassandra Pena. Yeah, we chat almost daily, always about hair. So yes, great. Thanks for joining in.
There's a lot of Texas. I believe Todd Falk.
Todd, I was just talking 2 hours. Todd and I had a conversation this morning for 2 hours. I never knew I could talk about myself for 2 hours. So we were chatting with the students. It must be a very strange time for students coming into the industry, everything virtual, but we had a good chat about what to expect in the industry, challenges and everything else. So that was a lot of fun. Thanks for that, Todd.
And Alan Ruiz says...
Stop it. The royalty of hair. Yes, thank you.
Says the cuts are looking great, lady. Love it.
Thank you so much, Alan. That's high praise, so thank you. Thank you.
We do have some questions as well.
Okay.
On Instagram. This is from, I'm not sure how to say this, Takuts Nikki. Mm-hmm. I love razor cutting. Do you always cut without a guard? I'm too scared to take the guard off most of the time. Need to get braver.
Okay, so that's a good question, because I did debate today whether I would use the razor with the guard, do the safe method, or if I should just go for it and do it without the guard. I decided to go with it. I have my Band-Aids ready to go, but hopefully you won't need them. I love, and there's again, I could talk to you for an hour about the difference between a razor with a guard and a straight edge razor, but it's only until you pick it up and you see the difference and feel the effect on the hair and the ease at what you cut the hair with. So if I use a guard, what happens is when I touch the hair, I have to work a little bit harder because it has to hit the guard first before it goes onto the hair. So using a razor without it, it's just melting the hair off. So it really does the work for me. So I prefer to use that. Now if I'm using short hair and I'm really close to the head, I don't need to use the open strokes so much because there's not much hair. So that's perfectly fine using a guard. But between the two, I would prefer a straight edge, yes. So get your practice in, and hopefully you'll you've got another, how long in Texas? Another 2 weeks before you go back, so you can get your practice in now. And a tip I would recommend is if you're learning with the razor, what I do in my classes is I have Band-Aids, and it's not a joke, it's preventative. I actually have my students put a Band-Aid around this finger and around this finger, because the danger comes right this open corner. It's funny, it's not even when you're cutting the hair, it's kind of when you're holding it. We tend to push our finger up. So right here, if you're practicing, wrap a Band-Aid around this finger and this finger. So if you do cut, you cut the Band-Aid and not your finger. All right, so before I take the next question, I'm just explaining, as I'm going through the back, you see I'm leaving this hair down because I want to eventually blend this in, and my sections here are not quite as diagonal as the beginning, because that was just for the outline. Now they're becoming just a little bit more rounded. It's not so much here, it's the amount of hair that I'm taking. I'm really just following the outline at this point right here. Okay, and I'm going to begin. I just did my elevation was low for the first one, and I'm going to begin small amounts of graduation. So I will meet up with the graduation at the front, and it all blends all together. Okay.
Here's a question from Sarah Mitchell Hare on Instagram.
Hi, Sarah.
Do you like to do your outline using scissors and then the rest with the razor?
You could definitely do that. Definitely. Maybe if you want that effect of what I'm going for with the French bob, I would say that do your outline, but then go back and point cut it so you have the same texture. Because if you do a blunt cut and then put a razor on top, I feel like you lose a little bit of what you were going for. So you definitely put that outline in first, because the outline is the be all and end all of the haircut, really. That's why I did that off camera, because it does take a while to get that balance right. I have to walk around the head, I have to look in the mirror. So yeah, definitely you can do that. And you'll see at the very end of this haircut, I'm going to go over with the points of my shears in case there's any hair that's a bit too short to grab with the razor, my fingers. I can take a little bit with the scissors, the tips of the scissors, and just go in and really finish the haircut with that. But always using the points, not holding the hair horizontally. Okay, so you can see my elevation here. It's not too high. I just want to bring it out to create a little bit of shape. And I'm going to keep my stroke at kind of a medium stroke right here. I don't want to get too much texture at the moment. I'm still building the outline right here below the occipital bone. Okay, if I start elevating too high, then I get a big jump in the hair right here. So I want to keep this, pretty close, just a little bit of elevation. Coming around the ear, I'm going to drop my elevation, of course. Just to keep that hair that's behind the ear intact, that we don't want that jump right through there. Okay, so you can hear the razor hitting the hair, but that's just because it's a mannequin. I don't hear this on my guests in the salon. I don't hear this going through there. And quite often I get the question of, do you think the razor will ruin the hair? Definitely, if you're using the razor correctly, you do not ruin the hair. You keep the integrity of the hair all the time. You'll see as I'm moving in, I have a slight angle. I never come on parallel with the hair. I've got a slight angle with the razor at all times. So as it hits the hair, it's melting off. It's not scraping. Okay, so continuing up. And I have another question.
This one is on the Neil Facebook page, and it's from Nicole Nedham Pan.
Oh, hi, Nicole.
Do you razor cut dry hair, or will you get to that later?
Thanks, Nicole. I'm sorry I can't see you guys in Tulsa. I was hoping to be there this month, but yeah, that's got canceled. So we'll make up. We'll definitely do a makeup class. Razor cutting, I do see many hairstylists doing razor cutting dry. It's not my preference, to be honest, but I wouldn't, if you can find a way of doing it and keeps the hair healthy, I would say go for it. But maybe a little bit sort of tweaking the hair at the very end. I can pick up a piece and then use the razor, but I would prefer to do the work with the razor on wet hair. Yeah, it just feels better. It glides. Like my razor just glides over the hair when the hair is wet. And every hair company we'll do some sort of a cutting lotion. With Aveda, ours are our leave-in conditioner is our new Nutriplenish. The leave-in that I use, that's a great one for keeping the moisture content in the hair and giving a nice slip to the hair. So when I'm cutting, I feel like it just glides right through. Thanks, Nicole. Okay, so you see my elevation is coming out a little bit more, not quite the 45 degrees, just keeping it pretty low. Once I start going above the top of the occipital bone, the head is starting to curve here, I can bring it out a little bit higher, but I'm not really looking for a graduated bob. That's not my intention here. So I would like to keep this pretty low, my graduation pretty low. The elevation was just to give it a little shape so it's not too blunt at the ends. And then we know the hair below the occipital bone can be quite thick on our guest. And we want from the side view, we want an even amount of hair. So we're not looking for, just a small amount of hair, because in the front we just have this much and then really wide through here. So I'm going to address that now before I go up any further. And I'll work in vertically and just take a little bit of that weight off through here. So it will be, instead of taking my texturizing shears and going in there, I'll just work a little bit, take a little bit of the weight off right in here. All right, and keep an eye on that and how that's affecting the shape. And really this is just to balance out the front and the back, just to take a bit through here. And then with curly hair, this is great because as I'm removing some of the weight, you can see it's deliberate pieces that I'm taking out. So it's making these curls, they'll curl individually, and then the short ones, so it'll give a lot more texture to the hair doing this. Okay, I'm careful not to go too close to the roots of the hair, just keeping that, really towards the ends. But you do get an artistic freedom that comes with using a straight edge razor, that you kind of have to work a lot harder with the scissors, going in and doing different directions to remove the weight, where this one here, you can just get that right as you're cutting. Okay? I'm very careful in this area here where the hair falls over skin not to do any texturing. I can see as the hair starts to dry, if I do need to take a bit more weight out, I will, but I really want to keep that nice strong weight line at the bottom, that heavy line there. If I start texturizing in here, you know what can happen, then we get a bit transparent, and that would change the look. All right, so I'm going to move back up to the top of the head. So I think graduation, when I'm using a razor, graduation for me comes not so much with the strokes of the razor. As I'm working and the strokes get a bit wider, I do get more lift into the hair this way. So moving up. So I'm just following around. So you can see my rounded horseshoe section right through here. We'll now start moving into the front of the hair. When I'm coming in from the back to the front, making sure that this graduation is consistent from the front into the back. Okay, so we'll do that blend together. So now I'm going to increase the movement of my strokes of the razor. Okay, which will give me even more texture and more of that piecier line, shattered line through here. So this is why I love graduation with the razor so much. Even though we're doing precision, we're working on, exactly the same elevation all the way around, my ends become like beautifully like filtered on the end, kind of feathered through the end. So I would have to work harder with my scissors to do that. So it really gives me the 2-for-1 when I'm cutting it this way. All right, so I'm going to continue around. So my elevation never really changes. It's the stroke of the razor that changes more. And you can definitely do this whole haircut with the razor with a guard, absolutely. It's just more fun, and I think a little bit more challenging as a stylist if you can pick up this tool and master this tool. Continue through the back, and I'm keeping an eye on my sides as well. So on the sides, as I'm coming around with this horseshoe, it's running into the sides where I did start my elevation, so I really keep an eye that we're all joined in together there. So I'm way above where we would accidentally you know, lift too high. So I'm above there, so I'm feeling free to go through and keep my graduation consistent into the front. Okay, almost up to the top here. Okay, so now my sections become a little bit more horseshoe. And you can see I'm not clipping them up. I'll bring it over here. I'm not clipping up the hair because I want to blend in from the back to the front. So I'm just keeping that horseshoe section all the way around through here. Almost like a diamond shape right there, or a V shape. Okay. So again, just keeping the head upright, and then taking my section through here. Elevate, and then I can see, I'm always seeing through. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but every time I take a section, I can see through my guide, and if it's just too much, I'll just subsection again, make a smaller section. But I'm always in control as I see through my guide through here. And as I'm coming in this way, you can see that my razor is coming in more at a 45-degree angle as opposed to this way. It's a 45-degree angle as I'm cutting, so it's really just taking that, melting that hair off immediately. Okay. So again, beautiful ends that we create with the razor, short, long, short, long. So a question I get a lot is, can I razor cut curly hair? Absolutely. This is a curly hair mannequin, so you're going to see as I'm cutting just all the beautiful texture that comes out. As long as you're using the razor correctly. Incorrectly would be, and I'll show you on a piece of hair that I haven't cut, incorrectly I feel as if you would just be scraping it like that. You're just scraping, because what happens is you can accidentally just scrape the cuticle and leave the rest of the hair there, and that's what makes it that look where it looks like it's damaged or it has split ends. But if you hold the razor correctly, you're just going to find, and you could actually feel it. If I don't have the razor at that, and we call it the sweet spot where it cuts the hair, you can just push the hair a little bit. So if you just turn it and work on your direction of holding the razor and how it hits the hair, you'll see the big difference. Okay, moving in through the front, now I'm grabbing the hair that was cut above the parietal ridge on the front side here, and you can see it's just a slight little connection between the two. So we're keeping our elevation consistent. So I'll do just a little bit more of the weight removal as I come up through here. Now I'm going to take it horizontal instead of vertical and just look. And now I'm keeping more towards the bottom of the hair. So I'm not looking as I come above the parietal ridge. I'm not looking to remove the bulk from the hair. I'm just looking to separate out the ends a little bit more. And my favorite way of styling this is with a diffuser or just air dry. Because that's really what the razor is for, is to bring out all the natural texture that's going in here. Okay, if I have another question, that'd be great.
This one is on Instagram, the Elevate page, and it's from Alex, your friend.
Oh, hey Alex. Yeah.
Can you explain a little about the heel of the razor versus the toe of the razor? Can you use the heel on the right side of the head and the toe on the left side of the head? Okay,
so being right-handed, when I elevate the hair, when I bring out the hair this way here, I use the heel of the razor. So the heel, that's again going back to ballet, heel, toe, heel, toe. The heel of the razor is coming, because I'm right-handed, I go to the left. So it's staying above my fingers all the time. When I'm coming to the right and I'm working that way, I just turn it upside down and I use the toe of the razor. So that way it's always above my fingers, because if I'm using the toe and I'm coming to the left, you can see that danger, danger, danger. So just lift it up here. So it's the heel to the left, the toe to the right. And that's something after you work with the razor for a while, you don't even have to think about that any longer. That just becomes second nature. Same thing about how I'm holding the razor. So easiest way to learn how to hold the razor is just do a peace sign with your fingers, and then you put that right in here, and this is the tang of the razor, and you just wrap your index finger around, and then you work with your comb. So this can be a little bit of a learning curve too, is just you don't have your index finger anymore, and you're using your thumb and your 3 fingers here to comb the hair. So again, it's definitely a learned skill using the razor. But once you learn it, you'll be happy you did. It's just another thing to put in your portfolio of what you can do. That question was from Alec, a co-worker of mine who I miss all my salon family. So shout out to Alec. Thanks for joining in. And in Chicago, we haven't been having great weather. So yesterday we had like an hour of non-rain and non-cold. So I went out on my deck and I was working on mannequins there, and we're on a golf course. So I got a few funny looks from people walking by there. This is what I do. I try and do a haircut a day, just keep practicing, trying something new, you know, and so thank goodness I have all these mannequins from previous classes and, you know, the supply I have, because it's been really keeping me busy. All right, as I'm coming up to the top, you can see just a small amount of hair to be cut right through here, just a small amount. This was a previous haircut on here, so it had some layers. But I'll just follow through all the way to the top, making sure that I have everything blended. Right, from front to back. So that my graduation is consistent from front to back. So I have that all blending in together right through here. All right. So on the very top layer, I do not need to do any texture. There's enough underneath that's going to push the hair in different directions, so I don't need to add any more texture up through here. What I am going to do now is come back to the front, the fringe area, and see how that's sitting on her here. So I wanted that to pop up above her eyebrows, and I feel like it's almost there. Maybe go a little bit shorter in the center. I'll just take that center section right here, just twist this around, and just with the heel of the razor, just take a little bit shorter just for interest right through here. So you could do that all the way around, but I kind of like these ends that are flipping up there, so I will leave her the way she is. Okay, so final part of the haircut is taking my shears, and this is where I want to like bring everything together, make sure that there's no little pieces that are just on their own right there. So if I have any little pieces of hair that are on their own, I'll just pick those up and just very lightly point cut. So I'm starting at the front center, and I want this blend from the fringe into the rest of the hair here. So if the graduation and the fringe, there's a disconnect, I want to very slightly connect that by pulling up concave, bring everything short to long there, and then just adding a bit, it doesn't have to be a total connection, but just some sort of like a short to long coming up this way. All the way up. Okay. So these little pieces here, I don't want them to become a challenge for my guest where she has just one long piece of hair that's not really working with the rest. I'm going to make sure that it's all going well for her here. Okay, so this is, I'd heard this called as sealing the hair, S-E-A-L-I-N-G. It's like sealing the ends of the hair. If there's any little ends that are on their own, we're sealing them up with the rest of the hair. Okay. So here she's looking at the front, and all the time like looking at, we want the hair to dry as I'm cutting it, so I'm looking and seeing how that's going. You know, at one side that's curling up, so while I'm going in through the back, I'd like to just kind of push that hair in a little bit so it starts drying this way. So keeping an eye on the shape as it's drying, although that little curl is quite cute there, so I'll leave her. Okay, and then move into the back and just kind of double checking my graduation and make sure that there is a blend between the fringe area and the graduation. So it should be like a little triangle shape right here at the top here, and just do a slight blend with the points of the shears. So when I'm sealing the hair, going back in, doing any sort of finishing touches, always keeping the points of the shears going into the hair as opposed to cutting it straight across, because I feel if you do that, that's all of your work has been kind of negated there by going in that way. So you can see I'm using the wide side of the comb at this point because I'm just looking to get a nice little connection without going back into precision work. Okay, so just those few pieces that are here. Move that hair around. Okay, so I love the way it's all these pieces are just living individually through the hair. Still have that strong strong line through the end, and I'll just seal the end. So I'm just doing pivoting sections from here, lifting from the very top, making sure that there's the connection between the fringe and the graduation. Okay, and that's it, a very quick, easy haircut to do. But I would just definitely encourage you, if you have not used a straight edge razor, use this time to practice and master that. Put the band-aids on the fingers first, of course, and see how that goes. And you can always instant message me if you have any questions about that, or where to get the razor from, or if you have questions while you're doing the cut. Okay, so my favorite way of styling this will be put some product. I love the Be Curly Style Prep by Aveda, and really working with your hands, getting the shape in first of all with your hands before you start doing anything. So I'll move into the front and squeeze that lotion into the hair. So whatever styling product that you like for natural dry curl, there, and then just work with the outline here. Squeeze that product in. Move the hair around. We're not looking for too much volume in this area, keeping that quite smooth, but really putting that shape in right through the front where it curls upwards, because that's why we put that line coming up this way, so it does emphasize more cheekbones, lip area. Okay, so I could spend ages doing that in a diffuser, but I'll just show you one that I have already previously cut. And again, another shout out to Jeffrey Scott for this beautiful color right through here. Totally different when you put a color on a mannequin, so that's why I always appreciate my colorist friends doing the color. So here's a finished result right here. She's French, so she's wearing a scarf. And you can see the outline through here. So very different. If I put it side by side with the one that Alberto colored for me, you can see that that's a very sharp line that comes across here. Where this one here, it's got that diffuse line that's going in there. And my graduation is the same elevation as this graduation, very low, but it pops up higher and you get more movement, but you don't see any outline or straight lines through there. So that is the finished result here. Little air drying, and then because we have some humid weather, I just popped in some curls with a curling iron and detailed a little bit more. So when it's dry, that's when I can go back in with my shears and separate that out a little bit and really get that line coming up this way. Okay, so that is it. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's been a pleasure to be here on Elevate and Neil's Facebook page, and please follow me on Instagram, Susan Ford Hair, YouTube, same thing, just Susan Ford, and look forward to seeing you in your salon one day, hopefully. Okay, well, thanks again, everyone. Take care.